Alex Delvoye is a program assistant with the Wisconsin DNR Surface Water Grants Program in Madison. She assists with grant intake and rating process, answers questions from the public and grantees, and helps with improvements to guidance, forms, and materials. She's also part of the Healthy Lakes and Rivers team, administers Clean Boats, Clean Waters, Lake Monitoring Protection Network. So she's a good person to get to know because she's the one that's going to be handling a lot of your grant applications and making sure that it's got everything, all the T's crossed and I's dotted before you get it submitted for ranking. So with that, Alex.
Awesome. Well, thank you for the introduction. Today I'm going to talk about the Wisconsin Shoreland Evaluation Tool, which is a new and upcoming tool that should be available in spring or early summer. We don't have a solid release deadline or solid release date as of yet. But we're basically building upon the success of the Michigan Shoreland Stewards program and bringing a similar survey to Wisconsin. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that today. All right, and I'm presenting today as the project manager for this project, but I wanted to highlight the huge role that the entire Healthy Lakes and Rivers team has had in the development of the Shoreland Evaluation Tool. These individuals represent the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources, County, and Extension Lakes program staff. They all have contributed a lot of time over the past few months in reviewing, creating, and editing content, helping to compile a lot of great resources out there, and testing out how the survey is working in its actual website form. So some kind of background on the tool. The idea behind the creation of a shoreland property evaluation tool for Wisconsin was largely encouraged by involved grantees and champions of the Healthy Lakes and Rivers program. Michigan has a Shoreland Stewards program or Shoreland Stewards tool that we're basing our version off of, but many of the questions needed to be changed and updated to kind of adjust to Wisconsin rules and regulations, as well as the availability of the Healthy Lakes and Rivers grant funding for best practices in Wisconsin. We are working with the same contractor, LIAA, who helped develop the Michigan Rate Your Shoreland Tool website. So it does have kind of a similar feeling to theirs if you've already explored their site or are familiar with it. So some kind of overall goals of the tool. When we first started working, we outlined our goals for the use of the tool just to try and keep us centered in the goals and make sure as we keep working on it to review and reflect back on this, making sure that we're gonna meet the goals that we've originally set out on. We wanted to sort of raise awareness of shoreline health, direct shoreland property owners to information about the Healthy Lakes and Rivers best practices or practices that they could do themselves on their properties. We wanted to identify some funding resources to get started, use the tool as an alternative to a site visit. That was another cool thing that we thought of, and we actually had thought of that prior to COVID-19 being prevalent in all of our lives, and the use of the tool as an alternative to a site visit, I guess it may end up being a real positive in these times, especially when we're not able to get out and travel as much and those sort of things. So that was an unexpected but really positive benefit of the development of this tool. And then we wanted to also use this to promote social norming of best practices. So what have we been up to so far? We started work on the development of the Wisconsin version of the tool in the summer of 2020. We met with Julia Kirkwood from the Michigan Shoreland Stewards program, and we learned a lot from her. She shared a ton of great information with us on how their site works, and we got connected to the contractor that they worked with. We started off using the questions from the Michigan tool, but we did a lot of work in creating, editing, deleting questions to best fit Wisconsin needs and the goals that we had set out for the tool. We then collected a lot of resources and pictures that we could use as part of the content in the survey to go along with the questions that we had created. And then we decided on some point values of each question because each question has a point value. We had to decide sort of the weights of each question and answer, and as well as think of how they flow together. We then developed scoring categories based on how many points someone can get as they work through the survey. And lastly, we entered all of the content into the tool, into website form, and we've been working with the contractor to make sure everything is working smoothly. So eventually the tool will be located on the Healthy Lakes and Rivers website as a tab. For now, the link is kind of hidden while we're still working on development. The survey is organized by zone from upland to in water. And as you move through the questions, you'll kind of be moving towards and into the water as you're answering those. The zones match up with the Healthy Lakes and Rivers initiative, as you can see in the image on the slide. And then each answer has a point value assigned, and as you move through the questions, you can access resources, as well as you will also get some resources at the end of the survey, depending on how you answer the questions. And those suggestions at the end of the survey would be things that you could do, like suggestions of changes or improvements that could be implemented to later raise your score from what it is currently. So I took a quick screenshot of the main page of the Shoreland survey, and I'll show a few screenshots of what the survey looks like in my next few slides. When you open the site, you'll have the option to register for an account. You can take the survey anonymously, or you can log in and access your previous survey results, or even start up where you had left off if you had stopped taking the survey midway through, that sort of a thing. And you may already be familiar with the Healthy Lakes and Rivers website and notice that the tabs at the top right of the page, so up here, are the same as on the Healthy Lakes and Rivers site. We did this on purpose to provide easy access to the Healthy Lakes and Rivers resources and to kind of keep the same look feel of the Healthy Lakes and Rivers website. When the final version of the survey is ready, a tab is going to be added to the top of the site to direct people to this survey page where they can then get into the survey and take it themselves. So one of the biggest questions is, how does this tool work for users? After learning a bit about the overall goals of the tool and how it works, you saw the last slide, you can take the survey anonymously, or you can create an account and log in. Taking the survey anonymously will save the results that we as survey managers can go back and look at. But if you do take it anonymously, you won't be able to go back and return to where you left off or go back and remind yourself of results. If you create an account, you can save where you're at and come back later if you need to. You can retake the survey after you've changed practices to try and increase your score. And then you can also choose to link your results to your local organizations, such as lake organizations, who can then view responses in their area and see how properties around their lakes are doing. And users at the end of the survey are able to print out their answers and their areas for improvement. And you can keep those on hand or even share those with someone who may be providing you technical assistance for design of projects you may be interested in installing. And then another cool feature of the tool is once you've finished taking the survey and you have an account, this would be if you had an account, you can send in pictures of your property if you choose. If you really want to share, say you just put in a native planting and you really want to show that off and share that with us, you can do that if you want. That sending in pictures of your property is completely optional and up to you. And you do have an option if you want to send in photos, if you would want to allow us to use those photos in future education and outreach efforts or our program promotional materials. Again, you get the option to either allow us to use those photos for education and outreach purposes or not. If you do decide to upload those, that is completely your choice as well too. All right. So this is an example of the look and feel of the tool when you're taking the survey. And this is one of the questions currently in the uplands section of the survey. You'll see a progress bar in green near the top as you move through questions, giving you an idea how many you have left. There'll be some questions that we've included additional resources that pertain to the question, such as this one. You see the blue box at the bottom. For this question, we had some links to resources on lawn care and fertilizer use that pertain to this question about do you ever apply fertilizer on your lawn? And this is another example screenshot, this time from a question in the transition zone. This shows how images can be incorporated into the survey to help illustrate questions. We tried to use images where we thought they were most needed, but we'll be relying on feedback from partners or any of you who are interested to determine if we need to make any changes to add pictures in places where they can better help understanding. We used images to illustrate, at least in this screenshot, we used the images to illustrate percentage of the transition zone that has maintained areas like lawn, beach, and patio, which gives some visual kind of representations of what we're asking about. And then this is a screenshot from the end of the survey. As you can see, I named myself Alex Test. I've been testing this out all the way through many, many times as we've been uploading the content. But in the end of the survey, you'll get what level you scored with an explanation on what that means. In this case, I got entry level, and we have this little explanation of what entry level means. And here you'll be able to review your answers or print them out. If you click this button, it gives you basically a nice printable copied version that you can print out and keep in your records if you'd like. And then based on how you fill out the survey questions, you'll receive areas for improvement. And areas for improvement are tied to the answers in the survey, and you'll receive specific recommendations on what you could do to improve your score in those areas. If you click on each bar, they kind of expand and they look like this when you do so. So this one, I just expanded the native plant one, for example. So this one, you'll see additional information and resources for that area of improvement. In this case, we had a picture of the Healthy Lakes and Rivers diagram for native plantings as well too. And then we have one best practices for everyone area of improvement at the top, which will show up to everybody no matter what in how they fill out the survey questions. That one looks kind of like this right now. But we wanted to use this to promote the Healthy Lakes and Rivers grant program, as well as promote other simple free ways to keep healthy lakes or rivers around your areas. And you may have caught the Au Naturel article in a recent Lake Tides article, so we wanted to include that as well, because that is a great resource too for free and simple ways to keep your lake or river healthy. For the scoring of the survey, we'll be using a credit score type image to illustrate the different levels of scoring based on the point values the user gets after answering the questions. I will say we're still editing the coloring of the image. It may change the font a little bit, but this should still be pretty similar to the score image that we will end up using in the final version. The highest level of scores is currently at protection level, and then you go to restoration, mitigation, and entry level. And sort of by using this credit score image, we want to promote the idea that your score can change over time and improve or decrease depending on the actions you're taking. So we wanted to use this because we know that a lot of people are really familiar with credit scores and trying to keep your credit score the highest you possibly can. And we're hoping that people can kind of attach that same sort of similar meaning to their shoreline as well too. Like you want to keep that your final scoring level the highest you can possibly make it. And then we also hope it'll spur people to go back to the survey later and try to raise the level that they're at after they've made some positive changes on their property or maybe followed some of those areas for improvement. So how does this tool work for local organizations such as lake or river organizations? For local lake or river organizations to see results from the tool, the survey takers must choose to share their information with the organization when registering for an account. This way, the survey taker can choose if they share the data with the organization or if they'd like to keep their information private. We have the ability to set up a simple page directing people to information about the organization, which can link to that organization's full website or what they currently have set up now. I made a very quick screenshot of what that looks like at the moment. This was pretty quickly mocked up for a test lake association. In this case, you can include a short mission statement or an About Us section, an image or logo that you have, the link to your website. It shows a map where you're located. In this picture, I just located the Test Lake Association at the Madison DNR office, which is why it's in the middle of a city. We're still working on the association account setup portion of the survey with the contractor, and we still need to do some testing on this portion at the moment. So I would say as far as where we're at in development of the tool, this part is still kind of under construction, if you want to think of it that way. So what's coming next? So our next big step is testing of the survey by partners, and we hope to start that in the next around like 1 to 3 weeks, so soon. Based on feedback from testers, we'll then need to make adjustment to the sites or content, and kind of depending on the scale of those edits and how complicated they may be, it could take some time to work with the contractor, or if they're more simple, we could go in and do those ourselves. Because of that, I don't have a exact solid release date because it kind of just depends on what the feedback we're going to be getting from partners. But we're hoping that it should be ready this spring or possibly early summer at the latest. Once we have a final version of the tool, we'll get that link posted to the Healthy Lakes and Rivers website and open it up to the public. We'll keep working on promotion of the availability of the tool, and we'll try to get the word out to anyone and everyone who might be interested in taking the survey or using it for their local organization. And there have been several groups already that have been keeping up and checking in on progress as we've been developing the tool. And likely they're going to be great resources and helping to spread awareness of this tool once it's available as well. All right, so taking a step back and looking at the big picture, you might wonder what we could do with the survey data we're collecting. Once the tool is available and we start getting a lot of responses in, we may be able to summarize data statewide and find some takeaways in the data. This could be a few years down the road when we get a lot more survey results in. I think it'll depend on how many people and how far we can spread the word out and continually keep spreading the word about the tool and getting people to take the survey. For lake or river or associations, you may be able to use the tool to engage your user base. This would be useful in helping to promote the Healthy Lakes and Rivers grants and may clue associations into those who could be interested in installing a best practice on their property. Could also be used as an alternative to a site visit or be part of the first steps towards technical assistance in designing a plan for best practice installation. As far as thinking about the community-based social marketing, it can be used to recognize property owners that have high-scoring shoreline properties and encourage them to keep doing what they're doing or even make more improvements if they could. And it also helps to normalize best practices and healthy shorelines and promotes best practices in your community. So before I finish my presentation, I want to offer an opportunity to participate and test out the tool yourself. We have a few people already who have signed up to help test it out, but more eyes on the tool will be extremely helpful to us before we release a final product. Getting your input is very important to us. And testing of this tool will give you a chance to provide feedback on the question and answers in the survey. Such as, do the questions make sense to you? Do you notice if we're missing some big topics that we should be covering? We plan to send out instructions that would involve a link to the site as it is now, as well as a survey monkey to help collect that feedback as you're working through the survey. And then I have a super short Google form you can use to sign up to be contacted, and I'll drop that in the chat in a few seconds when I'm done with my slides. That asks for your name, contact info, and your organization if you have one and you're interested in signing up to be part of the testing effort. All right, and that brings me to the end of my presentation, and we can answer some questions that have come in now. I have my email on the screen in case you would like to send me questions later if they come to mind, or in case we happen to not reach your question by the end of the session or something comes up later.
All right, thank you, Alex. Yes, so you can either jot this down here or just a reminder that Alex's contact information is available through the agenda. If you think of a question at lunch and think, oh, dang it, I didn't write that down. So just contact her through there. Some questions that came up. Might one be able to add photos of their own shoreline? It may be difficult to place my shoreline within the 3 sample photos.
Yeah, so I had mentioned later in the survey that you could upload photos, but as far as you're taking the survey, we do have some where you estimate like percentage of impervious area in the area of the property. I would say it would be a best guess situation. I know we've had a lot of discussions of the best ways to, I guess, ask those sort of questions, whether it's percentage or if we're looking at square feet or along those lines. At that point, I think it would be kind of the best judgment guess to categorize your property.
And when you're categorizing these, is it how far back from the shoreline are they categorizing?
So as we're moving through the survey questions, we have it set up from upland to in water. The upland section is the part of your property that I guess is furthest at 35 feet or more from the property. Transition zone is about 35 feet to where the water starts, and then in water is in the water. So the questions themselves, depending on what zone you're in, you'll be considering that area of your property as you're answering questions.
So the transition zone is 35 feet.
Yeah, 35 feet to the water.
All right. The big question, when is the full rollout planned for, hoped for?
Yeah, so for the full rollout, I wish I had a solid, precise date, but I think it's going to depend on some of the feedback that we get back and what changes we need to make to the survey. But we're thinking this spring or perhaps early summer at the latest at this point. So
Is the
hopefully we could
goal,
still use it this summer.
is the goal of the test association page to allow association to share with each member and ultimately assess the entire lakeshore for the lake?
Yeah, so it's a place to sort of put links to your association and get people who have taken the survey connected to you if they've filled out the survey and said that they're part of the association. And from the association yourself, you'll be able to set up an account that allows you to go into the survey, and with your view there, you'll be able to see which, or I guess what the data is like around your lake from people who have taken the surveys around your area. So it'll be sort of geographically specific to how we set you up in the system. I will say I don't have full details on that since I'm still working on that with the contractor and we're still kind of under construction in that area.
I do like the setup though. It's set up a lot like Credit Karma, where you can kind of see how do I improve my score, and it brings to attention a lot of things that people may not be thinking of, which kind of leads us to the next question. Are you going to be ground truthing any of this with actual landowners? People tend to have an optimistic view of their properties and may overscore their properties when they're concerned maybe just about the edge of the shoreline eroding and not paying attention to other stuff. You know, how does this all kind of not skew too far to the positive?
Yeah, that's something we definitely have discussed as a group as far as ground truthing. I'm assuming we'll have to think about that more after we've rolled out the tool and we have some responses in that we could go back and ground truth, but I guess we don't have a plan for ground truthing as of now, though we do know that about that kind of perception issue where you may think your shoreline is, I guess, better than it might be. But I guess the tool itself should at least still provide really good resources on what you can do for improvements as well there.
I think one of the important things it does too, because this is discussed a lot, is when we're working out with lakeshore owners, we're always pointing out the problems. And I think it's really important to let landowners know when they've got something good, when they've been doing a good job, and not to dismantle that, because too often we walk right past those places and never contact those landowners. So I think this is a great tool saying, yes, your credit score is 850. You know? So, good job. Keep at it.
Yeah, keep doing what you're doing, and here's even some more resources of other things you might be able to change. That kind of information. That was one of our goals too, is how do we keep those sort of healthy shorelines healthy continuously
So you don't
through our actions.
go backwards.
Yeah.
So besides the recording of this presentation, which will be available later on YouTube through the university, are your copies of your slides of this presentation available anywhere else? Is that something that can be shared with people, or how?
Yeah, definitely. I could send you a copy of that. I know, or at least I think the slides would be posted with the recording, but that might not be until April when all of the convention recording sessions are available. But if you'd like me to, I could send you a copy of the PDF of these slides today if you'd send me a quick email.
Okay, so if the people asked about that, just send a message to Alex directly, and she'd be happy to share that with you. Other than that, we are up at 1 minute before our hard deadline. There is a group session starting at 11, so we're going to thank Mike and Alex now, and thank you for all the attendees, and we'll see you in the next session.